Since February of this year, my Razer DeathAdder 3.5G has started giving me a lot of issues. Clicks weren't registering, scroll wasn't happening, and so on. But ultimately, in March of this year, it finally gave up. The scroll stopped working and the left click button completely shut down. So it was finally time for me to get a new mouse. Over many days of searching, the Logitech G603 kept popping up on various forums and discussions, as well as review websites as one of the best gaming mice. So I decided to dig in deeper and find out what the hype around the G603 and its hero sensor is all about. At a first glance, the mouse looks like it was designed by Alfred in the Batcave. It seems like this is the mouse Batman would love to have on his desk. And what I mean by this is that even though this is a gaming mouse, its industrial design strikes a careful balance between the gaming aspects and professional working aspects of the mouse and embodies both ergonomics very well. The left and right click buttons are Omron switches, and I guess so are the side buttons, but I haven't been able to figure that out. I wouldn't be surprised if those are Omron switches as well. So let's talk about that sensor for a moment. Logitech makes big claims here. Less battery consumption, longer battery life, more accurate tracking over wireless. So I decided to put all of these claims to the test. Tracking comes first. This is a wireless mouse, so I let my expectations be pretty low right from the get-go in terms of performance. But given the price tag this mouse carries, it better blow my socks off. And it did. All the commands I was issuing on the mouse were quickly transmitted over wireless. The result is pretty much the same if you're using the included wireless adapter or Bluetooth, but if you're using Bluetooth 2.0, your results may vary. Even the Z-axis vector, which is when you lift the mouse from the surface it is tracking on, the translation of that was almost negligible, but to the trained eye, it is definitely visible. And I ended up doing all of these tests while the mouse was on low mode, which is pretty insane. So when I set it to high, the performance was way better. Just for reference, the low mode sets the transmission latency between 5 to 8 ms, whereas the high mode is set to 1 ms. So bumping that up to high, and you're most likely to forget that you're using a wireless mouse at all until the batteries run out. Talking about batteries, Logitech again makes big claims here about roughly around 500 hours of usage time on both batteries. This is likely due to the sensor's low power consumption mode. So far, this claim seems to be holding true. The best part of the battery situation is that you can use only one of the two included non-rechargeable batteries at any given time. This allows you to balance the mouse carefully depending on your use case or your personal preference, and you can have it in either the left or the right slot and it'll continue to work, albeit with less running time. And this does not affect performance if you're using a single or both batteries. The mouse is built very well enough for it to last me a good couple of years of heavy use. The bottom pads to assist with using the mouse are very good. The mouse glides smoothly over my mouse mat without any issues. On the back, you have the wireless mode button that you can toggle between the wireless adapter that is included or Bluetooth. You also have the on-off switch, which also doubles as the low or high setting mode. The grip feels nice in the hand, but I do miss the rubberized texture on the sides. The travel distance for the two primary mouse clicks as well as the scroll clicks is just about right for me. It's very similar to the DeathAdder, so the transition time for me was very less between the two mice. The top cover detaches to expose the battery compartment and a tiny holder for the wireless dongle if you are carrying the mouse with you. The top snaps back on with the aid of magnets. Now remember that these magnets are only strong enough to keep the top cover in place and may or may not take a good shake. The battery compartment on the inside looks super sturdy. And since this mouse can run on a single battery, you can decide which compartment you want to put the battery in, or if you want to use both batteries depending on your liking. My only concern with the industrial design here of the mouse would be the G logo on the top. I hope it doesn't wear out over months of use because I really like that. So that's enough about the freakishly good sensor. What about the mouse in general? Let's talk about that. The Omron switches have a great tactile feel to them and the travel distance is just right for me. They also manage to keep the noise very low when you're making clicks, and this could be important if you're using the mouse at home where you're around family. The side buttons do feel softer, and this is generally the case on most mice, but these are relatively more softer. Scrolling is, well, okay, it's not the greatest, but it's not bad either. The scroll click, on the other hand, is pretty good. The DPI switch on this mouse is positioned well. It allows me to quickly toggle between settings when I'm in game, which I don't do pretty often, but if I ever need to do it, it's right there and I can reach it pretty conveniently. Now let's discuss the software Logitech provides for this mouse. In Windows 10 on my high DPI screen, it isn't the best at scaling its UI, even though I turn the scaling off from the system and let the app manage the scaling. It still does a pretty bad job, but I guess this is the place where the 12,000 DPI this mouse provides comes in handy. But ignoring that, the software is pretty easy to use. You can head over to settings once you first pair your mouse and check your firmware upgrades. I highly recommend you do this step before you extensively use the mouse, because connectivity performance has been greatly improved in the latest minor version of the firmware. When the software is upgrading the firmware on your mouse, the lights will alternately blink between red and green to let you know that a firmware upgrade is happening, and once it finishes, the mouse will just reboot and will give you a blue or a white blink depending on if you're connected over the wireless dongle or Bluetooth. Setting up custom profiles, DPI ranges and the like is fairly simple and intuitive. Logitech's own guide on the matter makes it pretty easy to follow along, and I highly recommend you to follow it because that's what I did and it's actually a good document. This sensor also does 12,000 DPI, which is absolutely nuts, but I'll talk about that in a bit. What I really fancy about this software is that it can automatically switch profiles depending on which is the foremost app. So if I'm in a game, the buttons are going to do something else, a different macro maybe, and if I switch to the OS, a different set of macros, and if I switch to, say, for example, Excel or Word, it'll have a different set of macros and so on, and all of this works almost instantly too. So perfect implementation, Logitech. Between Dota 2, AoE 2 HD and Doom, I couldn't get myself to believe that I was actually playing on a wireless mouse. All my prior experiences of playing with a wireless mouse have been pretty terrible, to be honest. Not this time, not anymore. The mouse registered clicks instantaneously, and even if I forced it to, do some crazy camera pans, it would refuse that, which is excellent, especially if you're a CSGO player. And the Z translation errors were almost mitigated completely, and that prevented me from flying all over the Dota 2 map just when I was supposed to do something else. The only issue was in AoE 2 HD, where it does not handle higher DPI inputs very well. But that's not a problem of the Logitech G603, so it just goes on like a champ. Now, if you weren't expecting a work section here in this review, well, you don't know me well enough, or you don't know how crazy I am about optimizing my workflow. Bringing this mouse into Resolve 14 was an absolute pleasure to use. I began working on a general timeline editing in the low setting with a low, pretty decent DPI, and once I headed into the coloring mode, I bumped up the DPI, set the polling rate to high, and bam, that was one of the best color grading experiences I've had in whatever commercial projects I've done this year, and I am very happy actually with the end results that I got. This was completely not possible with the Death Adder. Final Cut Pro, on the other hand, loves the Magic Mouse. The entire software experience has been built around it, so I did not bother testing this mouse in Final Cut Pro because I know I would be left disappointed. Not that I was going in with very high expectations in the first place. And that 12,000 DPI, I can't figure out a scenario where that would be useful. Counter-Strike sounds like a possible game, but I haven't played that game in a very long time, so maybe perhaps someone who does play that game can let me know down in the comments if 12,000 DPI would be useful. One scenario that I did come up with is quite specific. Say you're using a 8K monitor to color grade or edit videos. That is probably where the 12,000 DPI would come in very handy, and yeah, that's about it. That's the only scenario I could come up with. So if you have any ideas, let me know down in the comments. 12,000 DPI is an absolute overkill for any human needs that I know of, but I could be wrong. I also hope that I didn't end up paying more money just for a feature that I'd never use. It isn't all glories and victories for the G603 either. The top removable surface has a great rubberized texture to it, but the sides feel plasticky, almost cheap plastic. But although it is not cheap plastic, it is good plastic. So that is pretty unfortunate. The mouse is pretty small too. It's almost slightly bigger than the Apple mouse. Gaming mice traditionally are quite a lot heftier, but the fact that this one is light and nimble made me want to consider it in the first place. I can use both a palm and a claw grip on it comfortably, but if you have larger hands, well, you might want to look for a different product. The firmware upgrade process for this mouse has been an absolute nightmare. At one point during the upgrade, the app just crashed and the light on the mouse kept blinking between red and green even after I turned it off and on. And I was caught in quite a pickle until Logitech released a new firmware which I was able to flash to the mouse, and then everything was back fine. However, the problems didn't end there. I had to do 2 firmware upgrades in total till now, and the first time when I did it, when the problem occurred, well, the profiles that were saved on the mouse were still intact, but the second time I upgraded the firmware, well, they were gone and I had to reset up the whole thing. I can't seem to come up with a logical explanation for this, but it is what it is. Also, unlike the Apple Magic Mouse, the G603 refused to work in the BIOS for me at all over Bluetooth. Using the wireless dongle, well, it works right out of the box, but this is something I was expecting since my Bluetooth receiver on my computer is natively recognized. That's the word I was looking for. I won't let a few bad points take away from the otherwise great experience the Logitech G603 provides. It can tackle gaming and productivity tasks like a champ, last a month on full charge and then some. The new Hero sensor is absolutely worthy of the moniker it has been given, and it would be a shame for me to see someone try to take it away from it. However, I would love to see someone try that. But for now, the Hero-powered Logitech G603 is certainly my champion for the next couple of years. An untethered one at that. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you disliked it, leave me a comment down below and let me know what you disliked about it, so maybe I can improve on it. If you're new around here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click on the bell icon so you get a notification when I upload the next video. I'll see you in that one. Cheers!